President Obama refused to call out the violence and blatant terrorism of the Black Crimes Matter movement. Yet for some reason, President Trump has to disavow the KKK and everything that it stands for time and time again. Good old Bill Clinton supports a racist member of the KKK.
There are a lot of people who wrote these eulogies for Senator Byrd in the newspapers, and I read a bunch of them, and they mentioned that he once had a fleeting association with the Ku Klux Klan. And what does that mean? I'll tell you what it means. He was a country boy from the hills and hollows of West Virginia. He was trying to get elected.
And so does Hillary Clinton, because reasons.
My first day in the Senate, I sought out his guidance, and he was always generous with his time and his wisdom. I admired his tireless advocacy for his West Virginia constituents, his fierce defense of the Constitution and the traditions of the Senate.
The Republicans passed the Civil Rights Amendments and the Civil Rights Laws because they have always believed in the equality of each person. The Democrats, however, opposed the Civil Rights Amendments and created the Jim Crow laws because they did not believe that some people are equal or even worthy of protection under the law. Now they have passed certain laws and created the Democratic Plantation because now they believe that minorities cannot do anything unless they have the government to come in and save them. To this extent, they're removing the statues of some very good people, like George Washington, who, although he was a slave owner, freed all of the slaves in his possession when he died.
I think that we have to get to the heart of the problem here, and the heart of the problem is the way in which many of us were taught American history. American history is not all glorious, and even though I love John to death, I couldn't disagree more about George Washington. George Washington was a slave owner, and we need to call slave owners out for what they are. Whether we think they were protecting American freedom or not, he wasn't protecting my freedom. I wasn't someone who, my ancestors weren't deemed human beings to him. And so to me, I don't care if it's a George Washington statue or a Thomas Jefferson statue or a Robert E. Lee statue, they all need to come down.
Or Andrew Johnson, who, although he did create the Black Codes, helped to end slavery and recruited blacks to the Union side. Even Abraham Lincoln, with arguably a few human rights violations, but in the end, he freed the slaves.
That's right, Erica. Neighbors tell us this statue has been the target of vandalism for years, but this time they say it got out of hand as someone torched it, and as you can see, there are still burn marks around the face. It's a West Englewood staple, a statue of Abraham Lincoln sitting on the corner of 69th and Walcott for almost 100 years. But days ago, someone vandalized it.
There was intentionality behind purposefully tarring Abraham Lincoln's bust, wrapping it in tar paper, and setting it on fire.
They certainly won't be taking down the statues of some morally questionable people, like FDR, who created internment camps, and then turned around to create the welfare state. Or Woodrow Wilson, who banned blacks from Princeton and kept federal agencies segregated, but did argue for equal pay in the military. We certainly won't see the end of LBJ, who used the N-word repeatedly, did not believe that minorities were equal, and created the Democratic Plantation. And then there are some statues of hateful bigots that will remain until the end of time. Like Charles Darwin, who was racist and sexist, whose ideas led to eugenics and thought minorities were less evolved. Or even Margaret Sanger, whose company killed more minorities than the KKK ever did. There are actually a few quotes I found on this. Although I cannot say them, I'll just put them on screen for you. Although Robert E. Lee opposed slavery and opposed the war, somehow he is the poster child for the entire Civil War. But the hatred of some of the people on this list dwarfs him, but those who tried to help minorities are having their statues removed. Liberals are erasing history, throwing them right down the memory hole, never to be seen or heard from again. Because if people don't know history, they'll be more than happy to give more power to government.